MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Last week on My Fantasy Podcast.
And recently, some company, they're like a film program. They're able to get a hold of my script, and now they're turning into a little film. So it's been pretty exciting.
I think Father Time is catching up with Tom Brady. My prediction is he will not play 16 games next year. Things happen, okay? Things happen. He won't play 16 games next year as a 40/41-year-old.
I'm gonna just come in there. There's zero chance Tom Brady retires after this. For our podcast listeners, if he retires after this Super Bowl and regular season, I'll strip naked on this podcast. There is zero chance Tom Brady is retiring after he wins the Super Bowl.
It's funny you said that because look what I have. I got the ones ready in case you made that promise. I got the ones ready.
That will not happen. He's just too competitive. It's going to depend on the Houston quarterback situation. If they get a guy named Tony Romo, they're going to probably be competing for a Super Bowl. So, that's quarterback barring, but that's my first two teams. And then,
everything comes back to Tony Romo. Wow.
Well, yeah.
Hello again, podcast peeps. What up? Thanks for clicking. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. All that again every single week in, week out. Appreciate it. We are live on YouTube with My Fantasy Podcast. The gang is all here today. Brandon Reed, Dan Shaw, Orlando Torres. Big show today. Super show today. As that just happened, and that I'm referring to, I'm sure all of you know, of course, if you had a pulse the last week or so, or last 4 or 5 days or so, anyway. So whether you like the result of the Super Bowl 51 or not, you have to admit, I guess, that it's probably the best one, if not the most memorable Super Bowl. We'll get into all that and discuss that. Spend a pretty good part of today's show, the first part of today's show, breaking down that Super Bowl and giving our thoughts and feelings on it before getting into your things on it and answer your fantasy mailbag questions. One of our listeners hopes that it will, some kind of ill will stumble my way today, and that these two guys give it to me, but hey, bring it on. We'll see if that happens or not. But and what did happen to the Falcons on Sunday in the Super Bowl? Just what happened to the Falcons? Had it in your hands. We'll get to that. We'll also talk a little NBA on today's show and discuss the future of Carmelo Anthony and that whole New York Knicks saga that's going on. Dan's Minnesota Timberwolves just made a move that's going to save their season and finally get them into that 4 seed that Dan promised us months and months ago. So we'll talk about that, and we have some mailbag questions from our listeners and watchers we will get to. One of the fans of the show actually has some really interesting local ties to both myself and Orlando, so we'll talk about that. Plus a whole lot more on today's show. This is My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. It is Wednesday, February 8th, 2016. I am Brandon Reed, lead writer for MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Let me bring in the guy who finished in a tie for third in our playoff pick'ems contest. Despite coming up short, he is consoled by two loving pets, Des the kitty and Romo the dog. You've heard all the up is finger birdhouses. You heard before he likes why not just mix the two together and start finger painting some birdhouses? So he has a new hobby. Maybe we'll hear more about that. But anyway, he is our founder, president, editor-in-chief. It is Dan the Man Shaw. Let's get it right into it and talk about the biggest news over the last couple of days. And, of course, that is Canisius' 2-game winning streak to put them, I think, at third place of the MAC conference. How about that?
Yeah, Canisius is doing well. They're hovering between 1 and 3 in the MAC, and they have a good showdown this week, a hometown rival as they take on Niagara Friday night at 8 p.m., so I'll be there.
And Niagara is first in the conference or second. They're above Canisius right now, right?
No, Niagara is actually pretty bad. They're towards the bottom.
They are? Okay.
Yeah. Monmouth,
So
Monmouth and
Monmouth.
Iona are 1 and 2, and I think Canisius plays Iona. They're coming up soon, so it'll be a good 2-3 showdown.
Well, now Canisius did just get through over the last few days, sweeping the Jersey teams that were just below them in the conference standings. So that was 2 really good wins over the weekend.
Yeah, and on the road, which is even more impressive. You know, in conference play, getting conference road wins is key to having a good season, and Canisius is really showing that this year.
All right, so Dan will keep us abreast of the season that Canisius is putting together. Really good season. I think 15-10 overall right now. Really good season so far. So, and we'll talk about the football mess a little bit later, Dan. We'll get back to you. But now let's bring in our man from San Ann, our resident actor and thespian, known on Twitter as It's Lando, but known in them streets as Last Place Lando, a.k.a. Zeke Virus, a.k.a. Zeke and Destroy, a.k.a. Team Torres. It is Orlando Torres, and I got thinking today, man, what a couple of weeks you've had. You're seeing NXT live in person, higher levels. Of course, the big Super Bowl and your fantasy basketball team has been improving.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I came short of 3 lousy wins, so I'm still stuck at 2. But, I mean, it's improving. I'm figuring it out. I'm more consistent when it comes to scoring. So I guess that's important. So that's another thing I'll be plotting for next year besides fantasy football. So I'll be plotting with the NBA as well. It's another thing to add to the list, in the words of Chris Jericho.
Yeah, Tom Brady made the list, if you can believe that, on Monday night. So, but yeah, you need to do some plotting in NBA. You started kind of slow in football, bounce back. We'll see if you can do it in the NBA. But yeah, you were that close to 2 wins in a row in the MyFantasySportsTalk.com NBA Fantasy League. But we'll root for you as long as you're not playing me. And I'm sure Dan would say the same. And we're going to get to all that a little bit later. Big showdown this week in the MyFantasySportsTalk.com NBA Fantasy League as myself and Dan are squaring off. Basically a preview of the championship, most likely, although DDT, Dylan Davis-Trotto, might have something to say about that. But, of course, we will get into that a little bit later. First, I told you last week, Dan told you last week, he made the promise, he stuck to the promise. We're not going to just talk about Fleazies.com this week. We're going to show you Fleazies.com this week. Dan.
Yeah, Fleazies.com. Check it out for all your top jersey needs of all the professional sports teams. And headgear, if you use promo code MFST, you'll get a discount at checkout. They're legit jerseys. If you use the promo code with tax, shipping, it's all under $50. I'll stand up a little bit and preview my Lance McCullers jersey. This is hand stitching. Look at that. It's unbelievable. And it's under $50. So you're not going to find that at any of your team's apparel stores or anything like that. So definitely check it out. Fleazies.com. I know Brandon got so excited at that hand stitching earlier. He bought like 3 pair. So,
And a sewing kit. I'm going to try to start stitching some of these jerseys myself. But Dan, do a little twirl right quick. Lance McCuller right there.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely quality stuff. Check it out, Fleazies.com. And we're always, I guess the promo code is still ongoing too. So if you use the promo code MFST, you're still going to take some money off your final purchase price. Is that right, Dan?
Yep. The promo code is active, so make sure you use it. And the more people use that promo code, the bigger the discounts will end up being. So If the listeners out there can show that they can use it, future discounts will be even higher in the future.
Yep, spread the word, because Dan is showing off a cool Astros jersey there. But, that reminds me, baseball season is just around the corner. So if you have any favorite baseball team, favorite baseball players, now is the time to purchase your memorabilia or your merchandise, hats and jerseys as well. So Fleazies.com. One more big partnership to talk about that we recently engaged in, and that is the fact that is My Fantasy Podcast is now on the Sports Podcasting Network, Dan. And as Orlando said a couple of weeks ago, pretty cool to see our podcast right there on the Sports Podcasting Network with all the other podcasts and great content from SPN.
Yeah, SPN is doing great work, putting out a lot of, as I said in the previous episodes, eclectic podcasts is what I'll call it, covering sport, soccer, Formula One to our podcast, which covers more of the mainstream sport. So definitely check it out, sportspodcastingnetwork.com. Follow them on Twitter, like them on Facebook. They're producing content every day. So, and also check out, obviously, our show on there too. Well,
and if you go to Podcasting Network, SPN, and the website again is Podcasting. I'll get it out. Sportspodcastingnetwork.com. You could probably see any sport that's really out there, right? I mean, anywhere from tennis to golf to soccer to NASCAR racing, Formula One racing, and then of course, I believe there's even some wrestling podcast on there too. And then of course our podcast, which covers the major sports, or we try to hit on every single week as well. So definitely check it out. Sportspodcastingnetwork.com. Now, without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. Super Bowl 51. Want to get you guys' thoughts and reactions. We were chatting a little bit as the game went on. I made some pretty profound statements about the game and the final, and I got more and more wrong as we got closer to the end of the game. And you guys tried to set me straight, but I still can't believe it happened, man. I'll say, even though I didn't really have a dog in the fight, I felt pretty strongly about my opinions, as we all do. I really thought Atlanta was the better team, and man, for about maybe three, but it just flipped big time, and Tom Brady got himself another ring. So what were you guys thinking? I said before in the open, probably most memorable Super Bowl. If you don't want to call it the best Super Bowl, maybe because it wasn't back and forth the whole game. But as far as memorable goes, I mean, largest deficit erased ever in a Super Bowl, and it was Tom Brady. So what was going through your mind? Orlando, let's start with you, man. We were chatting a little bit about it, but just seeing that whole thing unfold, what did you think?
Oh, man, I was on the edge of my seat, and I know a couple of people here that are, Patriots fans, Brady fans, and I'm sure y'all been watching Patriots and Brady for a long time too. But I mean, there's one thing I've learned is never count the man out. And I know going into the second half, where Atlanta makes it 28-3, and for whatever reason they didn't. They pulled a Golden State and choked. And I just thought it was phenomenal, the chances they kept on giving the Patriots. And again, it was a nail biter, and to see Brady pull out something like that, and to keep his composure, and to keep for just that whole team in general, defensive and offensively, and especially with the penalties, to eliminate those penalties, because that's something that could have hurt him down the stretch. And you saw Atlanta committing a lot of penalties, which helped the Patriots out a lot. So that also played a big factor into the game. But overall, it was a great game. I mean, you're always going to hear people maybe unsatisfied with it, but I mean, I was pretty satisfied with the game. It was pretty memorable, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't think you could not look back at it and say, "Oh, that was a crappy Super Bowl." For whatever reasons that you could possibly give, I just don't think I'm going to buy that, because you had two fairly well matched up teams. You had two pretty good quarterbacks. One of them just won the MVP. You had a big lead by one, kind of a choke job, and ever We'll get to that in just a second. But came back and won it. And not only that, with all the drama going on with the Deflategate and Roger Goodell over the last couple of years, he came back and stuck it to him, and that's the moment everyone was looking forward to see Roger Goodell hand that trophy over and congratulate Tom Brady on yet another Super Bowl victory. But I think looking back at our preview, mention that actually did happen and played a factor in the way that the Super Bowl actually played out. And I know one of them for you, Orlando, was the fact you mentioned Trey Flowers could play a huge role in the game, and he did.
Yeah, no, that's something I saw. I predicted would be a big something as the Patriots, and it turned out it was. He got on it early, and he kept it going for the whole game. And it allowed like Chris Long and some of the other guys to get in the game too. Even when the Patriots were down, Trey Flowers, you always saw him rushing the quarterback and pressuring Matt Ryan, and he was on the Atlanta side of the ball, so he played a big part in that.
Right. Dan, let's hear your first impressions. Just let it all out. Super Bowl 51. I want you to be honest. What you're thinking at halftime, what you're thinking early in the third quarter, and then how it all played out. What was your feelings and emotions, and just your level of excitement for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, I hated the first half watching it. I had put some money on the Patriots winning by more than 3 points, so I was definitely on edge throughout the first half. But you got to give Atlanta credit for coming out strong. And then as devastated I was at halftime, Lady Gaga picked me up. I loved the halftime show. She was rocking. And Tony Bennett introduced Lady Gaga. Let me just say that. In the preview, I hope you saw that. I was hoping Brandon was able to see that. And that person who called me out on it, he might not have been on stage, but he was a part of the Super Bowl. So that lifted my spirits.
And I'll just say this real quickly about that, Dan. It was a pretty good bet by you. You were pretty much right as he made an appearance. But looking back at it now, if we would have known the extravagance, levels that the performance of Lady Gaga was going to be in, with a pretty much tightrope circus gymnast act, all in one, jumping in and out of the stadium and flying a high wire all over, Tony Bennett had no place in that kind of show.
Well, I was hoping towards the end, when she was doing that slow song and she got down. That was when Tony Bennett, after she took the leap off the roof. So I was still hoping for him to come out, but that halftime show definitely lifted my spirits, and it probably helped the Patriots in some way too, because the second half they came out firing, and it almost seemed like destiny as soon as the wheels started to fall off of the Falcons' engine, and it just seemed like this was going to happen.
It did almost seem like destiny, but it happened so quickly. And in my opinion, it was all of the Falcons' doing. We got a really good mailbag question we'll get into in just a second that pretty much nails that topic down. But as I was watching it, like I said, we were chatting about it through the whole game, and I really thought it was over at 28-3, because all those things that we said might play out played out. You had Dan, it wasn't a special teams, but it was a big defensive play, the interception return by Alford, and that's what I'm thinking, okay, Atlanta is running the game. They started out running the ball very well, like I thought would happen. Devontae Freeman was having a really good game at first while they were still running the ball. So I don't think Atlanta's offense was intimidated by New England at all. They looked as if they could run the ball, and then they rattled Tom Brady a little bit by picking him off and in the interception return from Alford. So out of all those things we talked about, did Atlanta not have all the momentum and were doing everything right to win a Super Bowl, Dan?
Yeah, no, I mean, they definitely should have won. You look at turnovers in the second half. That's where the Patriots started to claw back and just failed offensive game plan. I guess you can look at it that way. The play calling was a little questionable at times, especially towards the end when the Falcons had a chance to close it out, and they're passing instead of running. So there's different things that I think they could have done to change that momentum. or at least be able to put a halt in what the Patriots were doing, but they weren't able to. They couldn't get out of their own way.
Yeah. So Orlando, when Alford intercepted that pass and ran it all the way back, at that moment, did you think the game? Did you honestly think at that moment that it's probably the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl this year?
No, because at that point it was 14-0. So even though it could have been a turning point in the game. Obviously it didn't turn out that way, but you could just feel like some of the life just sucked right out of the Patriots. Tom Brady, after that, he kind of looked a little bit scared to throw the football, like he didn't want to. But then again, that's something I had to do too, because until James White started getting involved more, like Garrett Blount had that fumble early on. So I know that's something that also played a part into it. So 14-0, I said, you know what, you still can't count the Patriots out. It's still early in the game. And maybe when they went up 21-3, that's when I started thinking, well, like, okay, maybe this game's trying to get out of hand. Like, that's when I started figuring out it was over. But at that interception, no, I figured that Patriots still had life, and it was still too early to tell.
The Patriots had a missed extra point. That typically doesn't happen. And back to, you mentioned James White, man, he would have been my MVP. I know it's Tom Brady. You almost have to give it to Tom Brady. But what James White did in a game as big as the Super Bowl was unprecedented. Running the ball fairly effectively, but catching it out of the backfield, getting the extra point conversions. Okay, New England had only tried a 2-point conversion twice all year and got one of them. They went for 2 in the Super Bowl and got 2. But another thing, again, how it all comes back around, as we talked about it previously in our Super Bowl preview, is yet another thing that actually did happen that we predicted, kinda. Dan said that it would be LeGarrette Blount that would have the big day. We disagreed with that. I didn't see him having 100 yards, but you were right. It was a Patriots back that had a really big day and propelled them to the Super Bowl victory. It just happened to be James White.
Yeah. LeGarrette Blount, he was hurting me from the beginning. I thought he would win MVP. Obviously, that fumble that Orlando was talking about, that crushed him, and I think that crushed most of their first half momentum from there. But yeah, I thought the Patriots, they got down by so much that they had to pass the ball, and White was a great option out of the backfield. But I thought they were going to be more successful, especially early in the game, running the ball. And the Falcons' rush defense actually surprised me on how well they played in that first half. I think the LeGarrette Blount, he had less than 40 yards rushing the entire game, and he did get some opportunities in the first half to carry the ball, and he couldn't do anything with it.
I actually think being down by so much and having to pass was a blessing for the New England Patriots going into the second half.
Yeah, especially how unsuccessful they were running the ball too. So I definitely agree that it played into the Patriots' strength towards the end of the game.
When I started to send you a message, Dan, when LeGarrette Blount fumbled that ball, that there goes your prediction, because you know how Belichick is. I didn't think that Blount would even get many other carries in the game or any other opportunities. Yeah. I thought Belichick would probably be, all right, dude, you're done. You almost probably may have cost us the Super Bowl here. And you know how Belichick is. He'll pull guys. He'll have a tendency to not play guys for 2 weeks after fumbling. So I definitely thought your LeGarrette Blount chances there definitely took a hit. And he wasn't the guy, but James White was. So, just so many different things and so many different ways the Super Bowl played out, and the way it all came down. So, I don't know. Like I said, I was a little bit disappointed just because of the pride factor. I definitely picked Atlanta, was all in on Atlanta the whole way. So much of that was playing out the way I thought it would. So I felt disappointment after the Super Bowl game. And let me be the first to admit now, I liked seeing. I wanted to see Tom Brady have that final revenge over Roger Goodell, because I thought Deflategate was just an absolute disgrace. The money they spent on that investigation for a little bit of air in a ball in a blowout game over the Colts, I thought that was a disgrace forever. So it's not that I'm a Tom Brady hater. I love that. I have nothing against Tom Brady. But the way that Atlanta lost that game reminded me so much of the way the Memphis Tigers lost that 2008 championship game by being up by 9 with a minute and a half to go, in control, celebrating a championship, almost to the point of celebrating a championship, and then just watching your jaw drop further and further as the minutes played out and giving it up. And when I'd say that I almost turned it off or completely gave it up after the coin toss to go into overtime, and New England got the coin toss. And I forgot who called it out, one of the team captains who called it out, but he said, we'll take the ball. And I'm like, yep, you sure will, and you're going to score with it. And this game is over. That was the worst thing that could have happened to Atlanta at that point, and Atlanta didn't see the ball again. So anyway, congratulations to the New England Patriots. They are your Super Bowl champions. Somehow they found a way, and now Brady has a ring for every finger on whatever hand he chooses. And hey, congratulations to Gazelle too, because it looked like she got in the game and caught a pass the way she was celebrating and fired up. So congratulations to the whole Brady family. But that's going to lead us. We're going to jump right into it. Dan calls this hate mail for me. We'll see. But the question reads as this from Adam Miller. Your fantasy mailbag questions, or just general mailbag questions. But appreciate it for all you guys that keep submitting them every single week. Keep on doing it. We love hate as much as we love praise. It gets us going. But so this is from Adam Miller. And he wants to know, Brandon, or I guess he's making a statement here. Brandon, I hope the guys make you eat major crow, because there's no way Matt Ryan is on the same level as the GOAT. Can you please apologize to football fans everywhere for even suggesting that you would take Matt Ryan over Tommy? I guess y'all are on first name basis there, Adam. So let me just say, no, I'm not going to apologize. And Tom Brady, I'll say this, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. He was the greatest quarterback of all time, in my opinion, even before Sunday. So I was glad to see Brady get that Lombardi trophy, handed that Lombardi trophy, and like I said before, just to kind of stick it to Roger Goodell, because Deflategate was an absolutely just disgusting affair, in my opinion. It went way too long. It was absolutely ridiculous, and I'm just glad. That's why I was kind of split and torn, because the pride was telling me to pick Atlanta. While I knew, of course, it's Tom Brady, one of the greatest of all time, but I just, so I'm split there. I'm glad to see the Patriots or Tom Brady get it over Roger Goodell and maybe make him eat a little bit of crow. But the next thing I'll say is Tom Brady never would have got a chance to be in that situation if not for the Falcons. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that with our next mailbag question from Amanda Egerts. But I'll leave that right there. But Tom Brady was put in a very favorable situation by bad play calling for the Atlanta Falcons. And I'll say this, I'll make this definitive statement, and I'm not going to apologize, because if you're talking about going into next season, I would still rather have Matt Ryan than Tom Brady, despite what we just saw in the Super Bowl. And I think I'm okay with that pick, because after all, Matt Ryan is the defending NFL MVP. So that's my opinion. I know that question was pretty much directed at me, but do you guys want to follow up on that? It's just a debate, Tom Brady or Matt Ryan, and maybe take a spin off what I just said going into next year. Do you still have Tom Brady over Matt Ryan, or would you take Tom Brady over Matt Ryan next year? Orlando?
I'm taking Tom Brady over Matt Ryan, even at 40 years old, even if I'm wrong. He's still there's 10, Matt Ryan, MVP and everything, but I got to go with Brady from what I've seen.
Even a 42-year-old Brady?
If he's still there, if he's in a wheelchair and they're protecting him with the wall, I'm taking 42-year-old Brady going from a wheelchair.
Okay. Do you not think that Matt Ryan would be doing the exact same thing if he was on the Patriots? I mean, you got to give Belichick a little bit of praise here, right? Tom Brady was smooth, solid, yes, but I mean, come on now. I don't know. There's a reason Matt Ryan did win the NFL MVP, okay? The gap is not as far as you guys want to make it. I know Tom Brady is the greatest of all time, but I'm talking about right now in 2017. I mean, I think I'd rather have Matt Ryan. Dan, what do you say? I know what you're going to say, but explain yourself.
I can't believe you're still saying you would still rather have Matt Ryan. I mean, in 2017, Tom Brady beat Matt Ryan. I mean, He had a championship over it. This was 2017. So if you're going to ask me going into this coming football season, who would you rather have to win you a championship this year? I'm taking Tom Brady 10 out of 10 times.
Okay, well, that's your guys' opinion. I'm answering the direct question from Adam Miller. Please apologize, football fans, for suggesting that you would take Matt Ryan over Tommy, okay? And I'm saying I just happened to lose the Super Bowl game, okay? Matt Ryan had an amazing performance. The Falcons had an amazing performance. It wasn't Matt Ryan's fault that Tevin Coleman got hurt and Devontae Freeman can't block, okay? Matt Ryan won the NFL MVP. Going into next season, the 2017-2018 seasons, what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about 2017 as in the season that just passed. I'm talking about next season going into the future. Yes, I take Matt Ryan over a 41-year-old Tom Brady. Yes, I do. Despite the fact that he's the greatest. You want Joe Montana over Johnny Manziel right now? Is that what you guys are saying?
Joe Montana. Yeah, I take Joe Montana over Johnny Manziel. He's going to come in sober, and he might play a little bit better. So, yes. Yes, I would. He can still swing it. I think he's doing an Advil commercial or something.
Okay. Well, there's a reason guys finally do hang it up is because they can't do it. And my prediction also, we'll get back to this before we end this conversation, Adam Miller, is that my prediction is that Tom Brady will not play an entire year next year, and we'll have a whole different conversation while Matt Ryan is slinging touchdowns and Tom Brady is sidelined thinking about retirement. And, hey, Orlando put the retirement tag on Tom Brady last week, so why am I getting all the hate here? Orlando, what do you say about that now? Do you think he should ride off into the sunset?
I mean, I still think he does, but honestly, I mean, he's, that's not what we're hearing right now. According to his words, sorry, babe, she asked him to retire. So, I mean, I had to go, he would consider, but I mean, I could be wrong.
So, but Orlando, you do still think there's a chance that he might have the off season and summer to in spring to think about it and may hang it up?
I mean, I could see it as maybe not going public and, kind of go out quietly, not so much quietly, but do it on his terms. I could see it that kind of way. So, I mean, that when I say, him just retiring and riding off to sunset, that's how I look at it. Brady doing it on his terms, and now when he's being constantly asked by the media, so what's next?
Yeah, there's not many guys that get a chance to do that. And that's why, I think I would be tempted because he can't make any more money. Hell, his wife makes way more than he does, okay? Money is not an issue in that household. But I've never played professional sports, okay? I've never even played collegiate sports at a high level, and I know that when you finally have to hang up those cleats or those high tops or, whatever, hang up your bat, whatever it is, whatever sport you play, and you finally realize that you can't do it anymore, it's heartbreaking because, I can't even remember my last basketball game that I played. Had I would have known that was my last, real basketball game played, I probably would have been pretty tore up about it. So that's something that you think about, and I know it's hard to walk away from. I don't know what more he's motivated by. I mean, I really don't, because I don't think anyone is even getting to his level of championships at this point. I don't really think you're getting 6 in the modern day era. It's going to be tough to do. So I don't know. Interesting point though, but I'll take all that heat, Adam Miller. Appreciate the question, but I'm still taking Matt Ryan next season over Tom Brady. And we can do this in the fan. We'll have proof. The My Fantasy Sports Talk NFL Fantasy League is coming back. We will see how high Matt Ryan is taken over Tom Brady, and I think that will prove everything because I have no doubt that Matt Ryan, well, I don't know. We got some crazies in our league, okay? But I think Matt Ryan.
Brady's going to be taken before Matt Ryan.
I don't think so, man. No. Not 41 years of age is what you got to start thinking about. It's about to happen.
The Falcons just hired a drunk as their offensive coordinator. So, Matt Ryan's going to have to be watching out for the bourbon bottles while he's throwing passes in practice. So, whatever. We'll see. But okay.
We'll see. NFL MVP. You guys are calling me crazy for taking the reigning NFL MVP over a 41-year-old. I don't care that he's the greatest of all time. That's what I'm saying. That's where this conversation ends. The reigning NFL MVP over a 41. Very well, very well. But he's now 41 years of age. Okay, and you know how the Patriots do. They do this every other couple of years or so. Okay, so I wouldn't be betting very high odds for the Patriots to win it again next year. They got lucky this year, guys. Okay, this conversation could go a lot of different ways. No, I'm taking Matt Ryan next year, and I might even take him with my first pick in the fantasy draft. You keep pushing me. I will take Matt Ryan #1 overall on the my fantasy sports talk called Fantasy League. Watch me. Cash me outside and see if I don't. Anyway, let's move on. The next question, and this is probably going to wrap up our Super Bowl talk because this is what I really wanted to get up to and what I've been hinting at you guys. You guys keep talking this Tom Brady praise. Tom Brady's the greatest this, Tom Brady's the greatest that. I'll tell you the reason why Tom Brady is the Super Bowl MVP and got that 5th ring. This question comes from Amanda Yegertz, as I alluded to earlier, but who is to blame for the most of the Falcons' epic collapse? So who is to blame most? I'm going to tell you, Amanda, who is to blame most, and that is Kyle Shanahan, your new 49ers coach. I'm almost to the point of conspiracy here, and good luck 49ers, because this is dumb football play calling, okay? 3rd and shotgun late in the game when they're in field goal range, and Matt Ryan ends up getting sacked and takes them out of field goal range. What the hell are you doing? Let's see. After making the score 28-3, they ran the ball only 5 times the rest of the game. What the hell are you doing? Kyle Shanahan is the reason why the Falcons lost this game. If he's calling the plays, he should have been fired, and I bet Dan Quinn is probably not regretting this at this point. There's so much haunting Dan Quinn after that Super Bowl loss, and I can tell you Kyle Shanahan is right there at the top of his list of things that are haunting him in the play calling in that second half for the Atlanta Falcons, because that is what won Tom Brady his 5th Super Bowl. No doubt in my mind. I think it's really going to be impossible for you guys to argue that point, that is the reason or the play calling basically of the Atlanta Falcons. It wouldn't have anything to do with the defense. The defense was playing really good through most of the game. They got really put in some bad situations by the offense. And I put out an article earlier this week, the moment that Super Bowl 51 turned, and that was the moment Tevin Coleman got injured. Because on the very next play, 3rd and 1, Tevin Coleman was out of the game. 3rd and 1, they call a shotgun play on a 3rd and 1. Devontae Freeman can't block. Dante Hightower makes Devontae Freeman whiff. He sacks Matt Ryan, knocks the ball out of his hand, and the Patriots get the ball on the 25-yard line to score an easy touchdown. That's the moment the Super Bowl changed. Tevin Coleman going out is really the moment that the Super Bowl changed, because he was doing a good job running, but most importantly, doing a better job than Devontae Freeman ever could blocking. And Kyle Shanahan complicated things with just some dumb play calling. Who goes into shotgun on a 3rd and 1? That's what I'm more disgusted about, because my prediction was right. Tom Brady would have made you guys look dumb. Adam Miller would have been looking dumb if Kyle Shanahan knew what the hell he was doing. Orlando?
I mean, obviously, yeah, it's Kyle Shanahan. You can't blame it on nobody else. But regardless of Tevin Coleman going down and Freeman not being able to block as good, I mean, I think Freeman's still the better runner. So, I mean, regardless of Coleman going out, the Falcons should have still been able to do things to put it away. I mean, 5 running plays after, they're up 28-3. It's ridiculous. So I know Coleman hurt them, but I don't think that's really the reason why they lost. Just like you said, throwing on 3rd and 1, doing stuff that they weren't doing in the first half. I don't know what they were trying to do even towards the end. They had to possess the ball with the ball with like 5 minutes left before the Patriots tied the game. There's still things they could have done, run the ball and just, write it out with a couple of knees, and they still failed to do that. And so it obviously falls on Kyle Shanahan. And I know Tevin Coleman hurt them, but I don't feel like that's the ultimate reason why the Falcons lost.
And I'm not really saying that not having Tevin Coleman available is the reason the Falcons lost. I'm saying that's the moment the Super Bowl turned, because Tevin Coleman would have been into blocking on that. If they were going to go in shotgun on 3rd and 1, that would have been Tevin Coleman blocking instead of Devontae Freeman. And that play just wouldn't have gone down like that. So you have to take away almost 8 points of the Patriots for not getting the ball on the 25. Even if you had to punt that, so I would have rather them kneel the ball in that 3rd and 1, punt the ball, send the Patriots deep, and make them earn it. Not saying they would have. I thought all along that gap in the game would have closed. I mean, I really honestly didn't believe it was going to be a rout like that, but the gap was going to close because it was Tom Brady. But you can't give them the ball on the 25-yard line. You have to make them earn it and chew up some of that clock, and that's what they did not do. So that just a horrible decision there. Running the ball, or I'm sorry, not running the ball, and going into shotgun on your own 25-yard line against Tom Brady and the Patriots and Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl. That was the dumb play. But I think it was the momentum of Tevin Coleman going down and not being able to block on that next play. He wouldn't have missed Dante Hightower like that. And I think that play would have been different. And boom, instant 8 points for the Patriots. Dan?
I think, Amanda, you need to look on the other side of the ball who's to blame, and that's Tom Brady and Bill Belichick is to blame for the Falcons' loss. Here's the thing. Kyle Shanahan can call the plays, but on 3rd and 1, if that was Tom Brady at quarterback and maybe a different situation, he would have got the plays. He would have done what was necessary to make those plays. So you can only call the plays, but the people on the field have to be able to perform those plays. So, the Falcons players themselves lost that game. Kyle Shanahan only did so much. I'll admit the play calls were bad, but tell your right tackle to block, tell your running back to make a block, tell Matt Ryan to make a successful play. He was not good in that 4th quarter and in that second half. He didn't make the plays that were necessary to be made. I mean, he just didn't put the points up. So, you can say Kyle Shanahan, but he's calling passes. He's calling passes for Matt Ryan. And what was happening? Nothing. No points on the board.
This should have been Matt Ryan's job in the 4th quarter. Okay, handing it off. Okay, tell me this, Dan. All right, so and Orlando just said it. I said it before that the Falcons only ran it 5 times in the game after going up 28-3. Say they would have ran it 8 times. You realize that's like 2 more minutes off the clock. There's no excuse for that. Defend running it only 5 times when you're up by 25 points.
I'm not saying the play calls weren't bad, but I'm just saying you have to blame the players on the field who are not executing the plays that are being called. So if they're calling for passes, then you got to expect Matt Ryan to be able to complete those passes for first downs to extend the game. So I'm not pointing the finger right at Kyle Shanahan. I'm pointing it across the field at Tom Brady because Tom Brady took advantage of what he was given. He was perfect in basically the entire second half. The Atlanta defense couldn't stop him. They couldn't get pressure on him like they did in the first half. Grady Jarrett was the best defensive tackle I've ever seen in the first half of that Super Bowl, and in the second half he wasn't there. They were able to shore it up. So you can blame certain places, but ultimately you have to look at the Patriots for executing that and being able to take advantage fully of the Falcons' mistakes that happened in play calls, but also on the field.
Well, and I'll tell you what happened with Grady Jarrett is that Bill Belichick went into the locker room in halftime and made adjustments. He had an extra long halftime with Lady Gaga flying all over the arena, and he made adjustments, and I knew that was a scary thing for the Falcons because he's going to make the right adjustments. But anyway, you go back to the players making the play. I'll tell you yet another reason why Kyle Shanahan screwed this up, because apparently he didn't have the intuitive enough to realize that he didn't have the right personnel on the field to try to successfully complete those plays that he's doing. He didn't have the intuitiveness to realize that he has now little Devontae Freeman trying to block Dante Hightower on a blitz off the edge as opposed to Tevin Coleman, the bigger back. It just, you can say that, yeah, they should have executed, but not if your offensive coordinator is putting you in bad positions with the wrong personnel on the field. Sometimes a lot of plays come down to personnel too. And I can tell you, you can run that play 10 times, and 9 out of 10, that same exact problem will happen to the Falcons with only having one blocker back to protect Ryan, and that's Devontae Freeman. It's going to go down like that every single time. So your short answer, I guess, Dan, is you're not blaming Kyle Shanahan. Your answer is what happened to the Falcons, and that is Tom Brady. Short and sweet.
Yeah, I mean, Trust me, Kyle Shanahan's game plan in the second half was terrible. I'm not saying he was calling correct plays or anything like that, but I look at it more as what the Patriots did with all of that, and that's who's to blame of ultimately. Because, if say it's a different quarterback there, the Falcons could stop them once and win the game. So they weren't able to stop them once, and that's all they needed to do.
Very true. But if the Falcons were running more, do you think Tom Brady could have made up a 16-point deficit in 3.5 minutes?
Yeah, because it's Bill Belichick too, and he's capable of many things. He can make an onside kick go left and then do a spin, a little quickety dink, and go the opposite way just by looking at it. So if he needed to, that would have happened.
He is magical. I don't have a pencil or anything. I have a pen right there, so I'll stick that right there. But no, yeah, anyway, it is Bill Belichick, but you're crazy, Dan. You're just wishing upon wishing, hoping upon hope. If you really believe that Tom Brady, I'm not saying he can't, but if you really think he would have done that in the Super Bowl, made up a 16-point deficit, having to score 2 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions with under 4 minutes, I don't think that would have happened. I really don't think that would have happened. Of course, we've seen it before. Of course, it could have happened, but I don't think it was going to happen Sunday. Let me pose the same question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't think 9 points in a minute and a half could happen either, but it did.
Okay. So let me pose the same question to Orlando. What do you think? Do you honestly think, and this is a realistic scenario, if Kyle Shanahan and the Falcons would have done their job and ran the ball, do you think Tom Brady could have made up 16 points in, say, 4 minutes?
Yeah, because Belichick's, and obviously, like Atlanta, I think Patriots would have executed an onside kick.
See, y'all's hope is resting on an onside kick and the magic bullet. Okay. All right, we're going to have to leave NFL talk there, guys. You guys got me too rattled up. Adam Miller started the whole damn thing, and we're just snowballing from there. So, y'all really – I'm not saying it's not possible for Tom Brady.
He did say to make you eat crow. Come on. We got to give the listeners what they want.
You guys are. No, well, you're not, because I'm still picking Matt Ryan in this 2017-2018 season. So you're not really, but you guys have all the cards. You guys have all the chips on your side of the table because Tom Brady did win the Super Bowl. I think it was all Falcons' fault, though. And now you're just making up stuff. Yeah, sure, Tom Brady would have came back with a minute 28 and scored 30 points if he had to because he has Bill Belichick. Okay. All right. Anyway, any last words on the Super Bowl, guys?
Tony Romo.
Or was Tony Romo in the stands? Do you think that's what you think? Tony Romo was in the Patriots locker room at halftime? Is that what happened, Dan? If that's what happened, then I totally take back everything I said.
I just had to get Tony Romo in. We didn't talk about him today, so Tony Romo. Okay. End of NFL.
Tony Romo, period. End of conversation. End of NFL talk for now, I promise you guys. Thanks for submitting those questions, Adam Miller, Amanda Yegertz, and hope we answered them to the best of your ability. I was just kind of outnumbered all night long here on this NFL talk, so we're going to move on. But thanks for clicking. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. This is My Fantasy Podcast. We are live on YouTube for My Fantasy Sports Talk. So appreciate it, guys. Let's move on to some NBA talk. And I just want to mention this real quickly. I don't know where this thing is going. I know me and Dan probably have our opinions about Carmelo Anthony, but now Phil Jackson is tweeting cryptic things about most likely his superstar. And just, I don't know. It seems to me like that Phil Jackson, okay, Carmelo has this no trade clause, okay, and there's only been like a couple of teams that he's even said that he may even would even consider going to, that he have any interest in him at all, which a lot of these teams are turning out not to have any interest in Carmelo Anthony. But he has that no trade clause, so you have to work a trade with the approval of Carmelo Anthony, that being the hard part. So it almost seems to me now like Phil Jackson is trying to make life so miserable for Carmelo Anthony in New York that he is willing to accept maybe lesser trades just to get the hell out of New York and out from under Phil Jackson. That's the way this thing seems to be going to me. Working out an actual trade is a little bit harder, like I said, because of the no trade clause. And at this point, let's be honest, Carmelo is aging. So just a messed up situation. I know you've been keeping up with it, Orlando. What do you think happens out of this? Do you think there's any way that Melo does get moved by the trade deadline of, I think it's February 23rd?
It's kind of hard to see right now. I mean, from the way it looks like it, I mean, if anything, the Knicks are the ones that look desperate right now. Whether Phil Jackson wants it or not, by them trying to move Carmelo, I think the other teams can kind of take their time when looking at a guy with Carmelo. You originally heard rumors that LeBron was pushing hard for Dan Gilbert to pick up Carmelo to bring him to the Cavs, and even if it meant moving Kevin Love. No, that's just ridiculous. I really hope LeBron really didn't say that, especially looking at what Kevin Love did on Monday, in that overtime game against the Wizards. But that's just ridiculous. I think that's a trade that the Knicks will make in a hurry, because looking at Kevin Love, he's just a better rebounder. I think he's a better asset to the team, and he's more of an upgrade.
And a lot younger too.
Yeah, a lot younger too. And so I don't think that's a trade that Cleveland will make. So I don't see that happening. And you look at a team like the Clippers, who've also been rumored to possibly be a landing spot for Carmelo. But you look at what the Knicks are going to want in return from Los Angeles. Maybe they try to go after Blake Griffin or something. And I don't think they're going to give up Blake Griffin for Carmelo Anthony. Same thing with Carmelo, who's just younger, a better player right now in his career. So, I do feel a little bit bad for Carmelo, the way.
Really?
The way. And, New York, I know it's not the best situation right now, but I don't see him getting moved by the trade deadline. I know the Knicks are kind of desperate right now, but I think the other some of the teams, especially in the East, are kind of going to take their time and, if anything, try to take advantage of this.
Well, let me pose another question to you real quickly, Orlando. Do you think when all said and done that the New York Knicks will eventually get better without Carmelo Anthony?
I think they will. Well, trying to move them, as quickly or rapidly right now as they are, I just can't see what they want from other teams, so to say. Asking prices, so I don't see. Again, I think it will favor in the other teams, especially with the Knicks being as desperate as they are right now.
Could that possibly be some of the bargaining chip power or maybe ploy and strategy of Phil Jackson to maybe diminish the value of Carmelo Anthony so that they get maybe a fair trade, maybe a decent player back, but maybe open up more teams to the possibility of accepting a trade, and also, like I said, make life so miserable for Carmelo that he's willing to accept a lot more than he would have probably a few months ago. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think Phil Jackson at this point is kind of like, I want to get rid of you for basically anything. He'll take a couple Zen books and a yoga mat to go along with a couple D-League players. So, I mean, he just wants Carmelo to like you've been saying, make life miserable for him. So he will take a trade to some other team besides, the Clippers or the Cavs or the Celtics. Were the three teams that I heard. So,
trade him to the West. Just get him out of there. Trade him to the West.
Yeah, Phil Jackson in doing all this ruined all of his leverage at the same time of making it miserable for Carmelo, because teams know that he just wants him off the team at this point. So, as Orlando's been saying, you're not really going to get anything in return. So it's like you just gotta cut the arm off at the dangling part, which is Carmelo. And to get to your question about the Knicks being better, I think they instantly are. I've been watching a little bit of some Knicks games recently, and he's terrible to watch. I mean, it's pretty bad when he just takes the ball, does his little isolation in the corner, and takes up a contested jump shot every single time. It's really bad basketball to watch, and you just see his teammates' frustration on their faces. Like, it's unbelievable. So I think he'd be a welcome subtraction out of that locker room and off that team.
Yeah. And, depending on where he goes, may not necessarily a welcome addition for his new teammates, because You know this very well, Dan. He's not succeeded at a high level of basketball, and really, honestly, mostly due to chemistry issues that he causes everywhere he's been.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's without a doubt somebody who is I think he is the definition of a ball hog. You see guys like Russell Westbrook get that kind of talk. Well, at least Russell Westbrook does it in the flow of the offensive game plan and that system and the game itself. And he passes the ball as looking at his assist totals. But Carmelo, it's a one thing. You know what he's going to do, and 33% of the time he's probably going to get it in. So it's just a bad brand of basketball, especially in today's basketball. Where it is so high flying, passes are necessary, and it's just something that doesn't translate. His game hasn't translated.
Yep, I agree with you. And I don't. In talking about the game style, I think that's what happens. And you were just talking about it earlier in the opening statement to this topic, is that he is of a ball hog because when it gets to him, the ball stops. It stops moving. And it's always been like that. I mean, his move is a dribble, back you down, turn around, and shoot a 19-foot jumper from one of the elbows. That is his move. When I think of Carmelo, I see that move playing out in my head because that is so much of his game. So many shots like that. And that's just the thing. The ball gets to him and it dies. Chemistry killer. Doesn't make anybody around him better. Never has. Hey, of course, I root heavily for the Grizzlies. I don't want Carmelo with any of my team. I wouldn't trade Tony Allen for him. No way. And he's honestly one of the better scorers ever in the history of the NBA, but that's all he is. He's a chemistry killer and doesn't make other players around him better. And you're right. While Phil Jackson is doing a little bit of a disservice to himself because he is kind of diminishing the value of Carmelo, maybe they can get some kind of piece back for him, and Carmelo will finally succeed or concede and say, "All right, I'm done. Just trade me for whatever." But I'm kind of with Orlando. That would be a pretty stout thing to happen by this trade deadline. You'd really have to get some things going, unless there's really tension and real big beef or something that happens, maybe even a fist fight or something. Between now and the trade deadline, which I said before, I believe it is February 23rd, and it's rapidly approaching anyway. But one last topic before we get into our mailbag questions from our listeners and watchers at home. Thanks for those questions, guys. But also, I saw this today, and I wanted to get Dan's take on it because I think it's the revival of the Timberwolves, and they're struggling through some injuries right now with Zach LaVine being out, but I think they signed the missing piece today, Dan, and you finally get to that 4 seed. Guess what? You got a new Timberwolf, and his name is Lance Stevenson.
Yay. I'm so happy. The Timberwolves died in the forest a month back for me, so I jumped off that train quickly. They were going to be my league pass team this year. I was going to watch them. They were going to make a top 4 in the West. I was going to ride my glory to you guys on the podcast, and it was going to be a fun playoffs. And that from the get-go, it just didn't happen. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I thought Tibbs was going to be more of an impact than what he has. And Lance Stevenson, I'm a fan of his. I like him as a player, but they need a lot more than Lance Stevenson at this point to even make a run at the 8 seed. I don't even see him making the playoffs. And then 19-33, when the Lakers are 2 games back of you, you're a bad team. So, and it's something that they're going to have to, I guess, play towards improving next year. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's not Lance Stevenson. But good for him for having a job because he kind of got shafted in New Orleans.
Well, it's not much of a job. Before we go any further, I just want to point out this is a 10-day contract, so it's not like he's really an official member. Hell, they may not even make a road jersey for him. I don't know. 10 days, it's not going very far. Plus, especially with the All-Star break coming up, but he had a a groin injury in New Orleans, so they didn't really keep him around very long after that. The Grizzlies didn't have any interest in re-signing him, but you definitely think he could probably help for right now, the ailing Timberwolves, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, he's a solid player. I don't know, he's not going to put wins on the W's in the win column solely based on him, but he gives you a nice body who can definitely make plays offensively and defensively more than anything else. It's kind of weird how much he's fallen off. He was the prized free agent a few years ago when he signed with Charlotte, leaving Indiana, and now he's playing on 10-day contracts. It's just kind of funny to see Lance Stevenson go from that.
Yep. Let me go to Orlando, get your take real quick. What do you say about Lance Stevenson? Do you think he's done? Do you think he has potential to stick on a roster, maybe stick on this Minnesota Timberwolves roster? Just a 10-day contract, but Levine's out for the year. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, maybe because it's the Wolves, maybe he gets signed to a long-term deal, just Minnesota. But other than that, I mean, all the physical talent in the world, but I don't know. It's not a move that's gonna impact or really help the Timberwolves in the situation they're in now. So although that's something that could work out for them on a roster, Lance Stevenson, I don't think he's the answer for them long term.
Dan would have been really heartbroken if the Timberwolves were vying for that 4th seed, which if they played up to level of expectation, they probably could be right now, because the West, if you go beyond like position 2, it's just kind of a mixed up group there. But Dan would have been really heartbroken if they had been vying for that spot and then Zach LaVine went down. But overall, what I'm hearing is that, maybe I ate a little bit of crow on the Tom Brady, Matt Ryan thing, but Dan is totally whiffed on the Timberwolves this season. That's what I heard, right? Orlando, is that what you heard? You heard that, right? Go ahead. It's okay. Call Dan out. He made a mistake. Let me say this, though. I was thoroughly impressed with Lance Stevenson last year when the Grizzlies picked him up for what they needed, at the time. He provided it, man. I don't know what he's like in a locker room. He could be an absolute nut. Probably leaning more towards that way. But for what he provided last year for the Grizzlies, I have no problem with it. He was a good scorer. Really provided what we needed. Sometimes he would take things under his own spell, so to speak, but he provided the scoring. So we'll see. Anyway, caught that, and I thought that would be a good note for today because we've been looking for it. Lance Stevenson kind of played the game over the podcast over the last several months. Where's Lance Stevenson going to land? And that's where he has landed for now. Hey, one more quick note on the NBA schedule before we answer your fantasy podcast mailbag questions is that the big reunion is this Saturday night, folks, in case you weren't looking ahead at the schedule. Big-time game. Of course, a lot of you probably thought the NBA All-Star game was this weekend, as I did too. It's actually the next week, so it seems like it's later this year for whatever reason. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, Saturday night, primetime game, ABC. Kevin Durant makes his return finally to OKC. How much are you looking forward to this game, Orlando?
I'm really looking forward to it. I recently saw an article where Kevin Durant's saying that this whole rivalry with Westbrook is fake, that he's just doing it for the media, that there's really no beef going on. And Westbrook is over here like, no, dude, there's some really beef going on. He has a bone to pick with them. And even though the Thunder are going to finish as a subpar 500 team, also, subpar 50-win team, Durant returning to Oklahoma, I think he booed. I think there's gonna be a lot of pride, riding on both of their shoulders. I think so. This is gonna be one of those games I'm looking forward to, and possibly a game that I think the Thunder pull off.
Warriors have got them pretty good the last couple of times, but hopefully this will be a little bit different with the OKC crowd energized, and I'm not buying that at all, Orlando. That's what Durant is saying, but Russell Westbrook is in a little bit different situation here. Of course, Durant left and sailing high on a new ship with a new captain with some NBA hardware amongst them. But OKC, Russell Westbrook was kind of left as the little brother, like, damn, dude, what just happened here?
No, I totally agree with that. I really think Westbrook has a legit beef with them. So I think every chance he's going to get to play Durant on the court, I think he's going to do his best to take advantage of it. And we've already seen that, even with the Thunder coming out the couple of times that they played him this season, coming on the short end. I mean, you still see Westbrook doing his thing and trying to keep the team in the game.
I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to take being in OKC and maybe a more inspired effort by not only Russell Westbrook but everybody on the OKC Thunder to really compete with the Warriors, because they just haven't shown that so far this year. But I would love nothing more than to actually see a Thunder blowout and Durant sitting on the bench with 5 or 6 minutes to go because the game is over. And take that, Durant. What's your feelings on the game, Dan?
I think the Warriors are going to win with ease. I don't think the Thunder are really in the same class as the Warriors. Should be a good matchup. I mean, it's regular season, so I would rather see it in the postseason. I think that would be a series that I would tune into every night. But with the regular season, it's definitely going to have some extra motivation, but I don't really think it's going to be a very competitive game. We've seen, earlier this season, the type of blowouts that the Warriors are capable of over the Thunder, but the Thunder arena will certainly be rocking. I mean, you're gonna see some hate towards Kevin Durant, and that's actually how I want to see. I want to see the perception that they give him, because that'll be the sight to watch, and how much they affect and boo him throughout the game.
Yep, no doubt. I actually want to see that to maybe spur some rivalries, or maybe a new rivalry, as, of course, like you said, Golden State is on a different level than OKC this year. But it's not inconceivable. I'm trying to pull up the Western Conference standings right now. It's not inconceivable that you might have a playoff matchup there if OKC. Let me see. Where are they at here? They're in the 7th spot right now. So this is not inconceivable that they could. The Nuggets are holding down the 8th. Realizes the gap is growing between the 7th and 8th seed in the West. The Nuggets, your Denver Nuggets, Dan, congratulations.
Yeah.
Are you still a Nuggets fan?
I follow them. The main group of team is since gone, and no George Karl. He was the big glue that held us together. But I was a Fareed Gallinari, Wilson Chandler fan, so those are the core nucleus that they have left. The rest of the guys, came in after my fanhood came through. So, but I do like watching the Jokic, Nikola Jokic. He's been impressive in his second season. He got a triple-double the other day that I saw. So. He's definitely been impressive, and he came out of nowhere. He's a second-round draft pick, so yay Nuggets.
Well, anyway, they're in the 8th spot right now, so congrats to the Nuggets. But that gap right now is 6 games between them and the 7th seed OKC Thunder right now. So who knows what could happen? I think OKC should probably stay in that playoff mix, but it's very conceivable they could fall to that 8th slot, and you might get your playoff round matchup. I think that would just be entertaining basketball. I'm kind of on the feeling that I think it'd probably be a Warriors sweep, no doubt. I'm not even sure OKC would get one game, maybe one game at home, maybe if they played the game of their life. But I think that would just be a pretty cool thing, and I would totally be in Russell Westbrook's corner if that does happen, which I also will be this Saturday night. Thought the move to the Golden State Warriors was a punk move by Kevin Durant, dude. But whatever, it's working out for him. Let's move on to our mailbag questions. First one comes last name, right? But wants us to evaluate this trade. It's a 9-category league, 9-category league. 12 teams in the league, head-to-head, and it is a keeper league too. So keep that in mind before you go willy-nilly and start making trades like crazy. And when you're in a keeper league, it's a little bit different because you have that possibility of keeping guys. So if someone strikes it high, you'd hate to get rid of them. But and these guys kind of fall in that category. They possibly be keepers, but the trade is, he wants to know, and he doesn't specify which one he has, just analyze this trade is what he's asking. Hassan Whiteside and Dwayne Wade for John Wall and Mason Plumlee. I'll go and answer it real quickly first. It just depends on the categories, I guess, because I really like Whiteside and Wade in this trade. Whiteside is beasting out right now. He had, 30 and 20 just a couple of days ago, and followed that up with an 18 and 18 performance the game, or I'm sorry, before that. So, within those two game stretch, he had 48 points and 38 boards in just 2 games. So, he's just a vacuum on the boards right now. I really like Whiteside. Plus, the Heat really don't have anyone that's emerging as a legit scorer, and plus they're going through a slew of injuries on the Heat side right now. Can't keep anyone healthy. And Goran Dragic, I guess, is probably your number 2 scorer or number 2 scoring threat right now, but behind Whiteside, or some combination of that between the two. But so I wouldn't like getting rid of them. Dwayne Wade's really only steady hand on the Bulls right now. Jimmy Butler is hurt, and they're going through some turmoil, as well as the Hoiberg experiment's not really working out. Dwayne Wade has scored 30-plus in 3 of their last 8 games, so he is hot right now, picking up while Butler is gone. And I wouldn't want to get rid of them, despite John Wall being my favorite point guard in the NBA right now. I really like John Wall, and if I had to build around pure point guard, not like Russell Westbrook or James Harden, not that kind of point guard, but pure, prototypical point guard, I'm picking John Wall. That's my point guard right now. So, and Mason Plumlee, is I think he's the weak link in this entire deal. So, if you're on a team with Damon Lillard and C.J. McCollum, you're not going to have that much opportunity to put up big fantasy numbers or consistent fantasy numbers, because those guys chew up so much of the production. So I see Plumlee as the weak link in this deal. I'd much rather have Whiteside and Wade than John Wall and Mason Plumlee, despite the fact that I love John Wall. Dan, how would you break down this? Keep in mind, it's a category league. We don't know what the categories are, but it's 9 categories, and it also is a keeper league. So who would you rather hang on to between that combination?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean towards Whiteside and Wade. I'm not a huge. I mean, Wade's been good recently, but you never know. Injury history, sitting out when he's going to go down for a Bulls team that seems to be going down. I am going off the assumption that he's going to stay healthy. Big question mark, and he has been so far doing so far so well this year. Right, yeah. So, keeper status, I don't know what the keepers are, if you would keep everybody on your roster or only certain ones, but these guys, Whiteside and Wall, you would keep either of those. So it's kind of a win-win there. It's basically going to depend on the other roster. I mean, what do you need? Do you need the assists that Wall is going to provide you, averaging, 10 and a half a game, which when I was looking at some of his numbers, they were kind of eye-popping. Or do you need, rebounds and blocks and things like that? So, it depends on your setup of the league, but it would be a fair deal. I mean, it's not any one that I would say, no, this trade can't go through. So both sides, it might be fitting a need. I would lean towards the Whiteside and Wade camp, but it's apples and oranges to me. It's a pretty fair deal.
Des the Kitty wants to weigh in there behind you. I think Des the Kitty is a Dwayne Wade fan from way back in the day, from the Marquette days, honestly. Orlando, what say you, man?
I'm leaning towards the John Wall and Plumlee trade. I mean, I understand. And you got Whiteside. I think Dwayne Wade is kind of like the icebreaker for me. I think Chicago, they're dealing with some injury problems, but I mean, Plumlee isn't that far off points and production wise from what Whiteside is giving you. I know Whiteside's probably like the number 1 or number 2, power forward right now leading that. But, I mean, looking at that trade, I'd probably go with Wall and Plumlee over Hassan and Wade. Yes, Whiteside's a big plus, but I look at Wade and compare that to Wall, and I think that's where I make my deal.
Okay, very interesting. So we split there, Jamie. I don't know if that helps you. I'm not even sure which combination of these two guys you have that you're looking to trade it for, but myself and Dan say Whiteside and Wade, and Orlando says he's leaning towards Wall and Mason Plumlee. I do like the game of Mason Plumlee. I'm just saying that from a fantasy production that Lillard and McCollum take up so much of the production. It's hard to play third fiddle in a team like that. So there you go, man. Hope that helps you out in your trade decision. Thanks for the question. The next question and final fantasy mailbag question comes from, this is our folks. These are my new favorite number one fans. It's Nick and Judy Pertins, and I'll tell you the backstory here. I'll read the whole question here because it's a statement. It's a long statement, but I'll tell you why they're my number one fans right now, and shows you the reach of my fantasy podcast. And we are grateful for all of our fans from wherever, even the haters Dan has in the Below, which is Buffalo. All of our West Coast fans chime in. We appreciate that. Our Texas fans, Orlando has, I'm sure, and then the folks from down south here in the Memphis area that I may have one or two of as well. So, but anyway, starts off like this from Nick Pertins. Huge fan of the show. Appreciate that, Nick. I live in West Memphis, and my wife is from Alamo Heights, so we have the best of both worlds with your coverage. I'm glad we can make it all happen like this. We have to be your number one podcast and your number one news or source of sports news now, Nick, because this is just too crazy right here. So bringing you all together. Alamo Heights is it's near San Antonio, or maybe a suburb of San Antonio. Is that right, Orlando?
It is in San Antonio. I mean, just like a little town, but it's here in San Antonio, probably 20-minute drive from where I'm currently at. So it's not too far.
Okay, so that kind of is the tie with Orlando. But anyway, Nick says, huge fan of the show. I live in West Memphis. My wife is from Alamo Heights, so we have the best of both worlds with your coverage. This is a two-part question. I have one for Brandon. I like JaMychal Green, the player, but I still believe Zach Randolph should be our starter and not come off the bench. What are your thoughts? The second part of the question is for Orlando. The Spurs need one more main piece of the deadline to truly compete with them Dubs out west. Who is tradable on your team to get that piece? And do you have your eye on anyone in particular? Coming from Nick and Judy Pertins. Well, I'll start out with the first part of the question for you, Nick, is that, again, just thanks for listening and thanks for watching. And I hear you about Z-Bo. He has defied Father Time, maybe more than Tom Brady to me, because when the Grizzlies got this guy, I thought he was on his last leg. And how many years are we going on now? That's been like 6 years ago or so. So he's defied Father Time more than anyone else, and a lot better than I thought he would, and still competing at a higher level. Now, here's what I'll say about him coming off the bench. I like the move that Fizdale did, honestly. I really do, because he's putting up as much production off the bench as he is as a starter. He's coming in putting up big numbers in 20, 22, 25 minutes. And the reason Fizz did that is because we needed scoring bad off that bench. The Grizzlies did. They just really didn't have that punch off the bench, and we didn't have anyone we could really rely on coming off that bench to sustain momentum that we may have had and sustain runs throughout games. So Z-Bo is providing that. So I have no problem with that, because Z-Bo is getting his, as you know. And I like JaMychal Green because he's just a little bit different player. He can hit the three, so he stretches the floor a little bit better, and he can rebound. So I don't really have a problem with him starting and Z-Bo coming off the bench. And another thing it does by bringing Z-Bo off the bench in his career at this point is it elongates his career. It stretches his career a little bit out further, and hopefully we can keep him in Memphis a little bit further and longer as well. So you're getting basically about the same numbers and production out of Z-Bo in a shorter amount of time, and plus you're helping that bench with the bench scoring, and I think that's been working out to perfection. Now, let me talk about a little bit something else real quickly. I think our problem, and has been for years, really since we got over the Rudy Gay and OJ Mayo years, is that I would like to move Tony Allen to the bench. I know there's been talk of him being traded outright, but I would like to move him to the bench and have what he has along with Z-Bo on our bench squad. Then you're talking about a pretty salty bench there, okay, with that defensive presence and, leak out and scoring ability that Tony has from time to time, and slashing ability, but mostly that defensive presence and the scoring of Zach Randolph coming off your bench. The problem is, what are you going to do for that shooter, that pure stroker in so long in Memphis. And let's face it, I think the days of grit and grind are over. To me personally, we're not that kind of team. We're trying to outscore you now and shoot more threes than you are now. We're not that locked down and try to win a game 84-80 team anymore. We're just not. And so I would like to see a move to preferably move Tony Allen to the bench and have a legit starter at the 2 guard, but that's probably not going to happen without moving Tony Allen completely. So I hate to say that. I would hate to see Tony Allen go. Love Tony Allen, but that's what I would like to see if you're talking about a shakeup on the Memphis Grizzlies. But that's hard, and it's a hard decision. But as far as Z-Bo on the bench, I kind of like it right where it is. So sorry to disappoint you, Nick, being our biggest fan. Let's move on to the second part of the question from Orlando. So I know I went long-winded there, Orlando, in case you forgot the questions, but the Spurs need one or more pieces before the trade deadline if they think they're going to compete with the Warriors. So is there anyone tradable on the team, or do you have your eye on anyone to go out and get?
Buy or before the trade deadline. I'm not too sure who they move currently. I know they're in a win now situation. I know the talks before here in town, and even around bigger media outlets was that the Spurs possibly moving LaMarcus Aldridge, because I know next in 2018 he becomes a unrestricted free agent. I don't see that happening, especially with Paul Gasol being out currently. I know they got a lot riding on Patty Mills and DeJounte Murray. So, and Danny Green, as frustrating as he can be offensively, I mean, defensively, we need him on the floor. So it's kind of hard to see who the Spurs try and move currently. But one player that I think they could possibly go after, or that I think would be a great fit for their system, and that makes sense, is Ricky Rubio. I think the pure passer, I think he could play pretty good defense. And it just makes sense, especially with the Spurs system, him being from Europe, and hey, Paul Gasol's there as well. I just think that's a Spurs move. I think it makes sense, and I think that's it'll benefit Ricky Rubio, and not just the Spurs. I think that's something that'll definitely boost him in his career as well, especially with the Wolves trying to move him, by having his replacement in Chris Dunn. So if I'm looking for, as a fan too, if I'm looking for a move that the Spurs target, I'm hoping, Ricky Rubio I think will be a great fit. To answer your question, Judy.
I haven't looked at the financials of that, but I love that move. I think that's exactly what San Antonio needs going further. I don't want to move Aldridge. That doesn't make any sense at all, but I think it's time to replace the point guard because, I'm going to kind of break it down to kind of a level that's not really meaningful as far as wins and losses on a basketball court. But I'll tell you this, Tony Parker has no fantasy value at all anymore. He is just an aged, washed out point guard. I'm sure he can still run a team okay, but I think that's exactly what you need. You need that young, energetic guy to run the floor and be able to do different things for you that Tony Parker used to be able to do. So I love the Ricky Rubio suggestion, but have you looked at the financials? Is that on the radar? Has that been in discussion of anyone around San Antonio, Orlando?
Yeah, that's a name that's come up. I know that's a name that's come up. But again, it's kind of hard seeing this, being a longtime Spurs fan, you never really see the Spurs kind of making like a splash or, making moves like that. So again, it would be something I would like to see. I'm sure Judy would like to see, and I know a lot of fans around here would like to see. But the Spurs being the kind of team they are and the way they operate, and they're not really big spenders to begin with. I don't know how much of a possibility that is, but that is a name that's come up around town.
Dan, you have any take on this particular scenario? What do you think about the Grizzlies, just in general, what you've seen this year? In our predictions piece early in the year, I predicted Z-Bo. Here's another thing, Nick, that I predicted Z-Bo is the 6th man of the year. I think he has a shot. I'm not sure. I haven't been keeping up with all the teams and who might be beating him out for that particular award right now, but I thought he had a legitimate shot at the 6th man of the year, and he's putting up huge numbers as a 6th man. So, Dan, you got any opinions about what's going on in Memphis right now or with the San Antonio Spurs?
Yeah, with the Grizzlies talk, I'm going to leave that all to you, Brandon. I think the inner workings of your team the best. When it comes to the San Antonio talk, I'm right up there with Orlando. I think Rubio would be a great fit. Popovich and the whole Spurs system, they thrive off international players. So Rubio could just be the next one in line, and I think it would only help further his career because it's kind of gotten sidetracked in Minnesota. Never really took off. He's shown flashes, but nothing more. And he's never been in the playoffs. So you're going to be in the playoffs with the Spurs. So if I was him, I would do whatever possible to try and get traded there, or to any type of winning contention team, not a 19-win Timberwolves team that was supposed to be fourth in the West, but they weren't. So whatever. The Timberwolves can trade him. I don't even know what the Spurs would offer, but who cares? Just do it. That would be fun to watch. And it would maybe put a dent into those damn Warriors. So I'm all for it. There we go.
You're already telling folks to jump ship off the Minnesota Timberwolves, even the Minnesota Timberwolves players. They let you down so bad, you're saying jump ship.
Yep, yeah. I should have a month ago because it's been burning, and there's not much time left.
No, there's not. We're over halfway through the season and counting. So, very interesting. Hope we answered those questions for you. Just one more quick thing to my man, Nick Pertins. I just want to get your take on the new D-League affiliated team of the Memphis Grizzlies. It's going to be playing at the Landers Center over there in DeSoto County in South Haven. And the reason I thought about this is because there's been a lot of talk and debate about the new name as of late, and a lot of people bringing up Grind City and things of that nature. I hate that because, like I said before, I don't think we're even that grit and grind team anymore. It's not even our chemistry. That was a component of a team of our chemistry and our makeup that was for a few years. So that's not even like anything that's concrete about the Mid-South or the Memphis area. So I think that's dumb. I don't like Grind City at all. But go ahead and submit your suggestions to us. Let me hear back from you this week and see what your suggestion for the new D-League affiliate for the Memphis Grizzlies would be if you had to name the new team. Very interesting. Love hearing that conversation in that debate because I think it's going to be good for the Grizzlies to have that local D-League affiliate in-house. The team is going to practice at FedEx Forum instead of Iowa, so that's got to help right off the bat. But before we go, folks, just want to give a quick update on the MyFantasySportsTalk.com NBA Fantasy League. We really hadn't talked about it much other than to let you know that Orlando's in the cellar but climbing out. But Dan and I are squaring off this week, and the winner will be the number one seed more than likely with only just 3 weeks left in the season. So right now I'm currently beating Dan 331 to 294. It's going to be a tough contest. So we played clips of you before.
You're catching me on a good week. I'm going to throw that out there. Butler has been missing the last 3 games. He's out again.
Sure.
Embiid has been out. Gallinari's out. So you're catching me on a good week. You better enjoy this while it lasts because if it meets up in the playoffs, you're going down, kind of like Matt Ryan did the other day.
Yeah. You're already making excuses. I see how the game was played. Is that how the game was played? Is that how the game was played, Dan? Hey,
Tom Brady comeback right now. What am I down? A little bit more than 25? There we go.
There you go. Hey, I like it. But let me go out on a limb and predict. I've been wrong about so many things this year, whether it be about politics or about this Super Bowl prediction, things that have really hurt my heart. But I'll tell you this. I'll make another bold prediction right here, February 8th, 2017 on My Fantasy Podcast. I'm going to beat you in the championship of 2 straight fantasy leagues. I already took the football title. I'm going to take the basketball title. You better hope you get matched up on the opposite side of the bracket of me, or else I'll be taking on Dylan Davis Trotto, DDT, who is currently stomping Orlando.
It's good for
Hey, come on, man. No. I'm already down as it is. You don't got to kick me anymore.
Yeah, I go ahead, Dan.
No, I hope we do meet up in the championship. I think it'll be a good matchup, and I'm fairly confident in my team's abilities. So, let's just. I've had the same team all year. Made 4 moves. I just kept it solid. My drafting ability speaks for itself, and that's what I'm going to take those teams. I'll let my injured players get healthy, and I'll come back and I'll beat you. That's what's going to happen.
All right. Final word about the My Fantasy NBA season right there, or for this week anyway. We'll recap this next week when I have 1 more victory and Dan has 1 more loss in Orlando. Keep plugging away, man. You made a valiant comeback in football. I'll tell you that. It was aspiring, and you could have actually taken down the champ and prevented me, the champ, from moving on. So you had a shot, man. Valiant effort. I like the way you're playing. You have guts, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you can enjoy your reign right now. I mean, enjoy your reign of terror as it is. But like I said, I'm plotting for next season for both NFL and the NBA season. So just watch out for that.
Yeah, you better plot. And I feel sorry for you, actually, because you had that 2-week run where you won and barely lost last week. Now you got to play Dylan Davis Toronto. That's
Oh, yeah, it's already over. The week really started and it's already over. I don't even want to look at the score anymore.
It's a 3-horse race for reals, y'all, in the MyFantasySportsTalk.com Fantasy League with myself, Dan Schalk, and Dylan Davis Toronto, DDT. But enough about all that sports talk. We got to get out of here. MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Tell the folks at home what's going on the site right now. Entertainment is blowing it out, Dan. I can't even keep up with all the articles they're posting and submitting. I can't share them all. Yeah, look at Orlando. It never stops. The entertainment. I think Orlando's probably going to jump on the entertainment side too.
Yeah, it's the entertainment section has been blowing up. They've been doing great work. Comic battles. If you wanted to know who's going to win between somebody called Darkseid and Thanos, you're going to know on our sites. So check out the entertainment section. Elijah Bailey put that article up. It's doing very well. We had our own movie awards, and those results will be coming this week or next week, and that was one of the most popular pieces in my fantasy sports talk history. So I think we had like over 10 to 15,000 votes in our movie awards. So
wow,
it definitely blew up for us, and those will be released soon. And I know Brandon's been waiting. He's been sending me text messages at like 3 a.m. saying, when are the results going to be posted? So you're going to find out soon. And then just check the site, because I'm putting with NFL season over, I'm going to be putting out my draft profiles of all the NFL draft prospects. So that'll be starting. Just finishing up with the running back position. So check it out. A lot of great stuff out there. Brandon put up his cry piece about how the Super Bowl turned and how the Falcons lost, and Tom Brady's better than Matt Ryan. So read that and check out a lot of stuff. Orlando, yeah, he's, like you said, Brandon, he's jumped over to the entertainment side with the Mick. He's covering that show on Fox, which I actually love. I love that show, so I'm sure Orlando feels the same. But just check out the site, bunch of stuff going on. And as always, send us your questions for the podcast that we can answer here. And I'm looking forward to it. Subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Sports Podcasting Network. We can go on, but I'm sure Brandon wants to get out of here and look at his Tom Brady poster.
I submit to you nothing but the facts, folks at home. No, none of those alternative facts. Nothing but the facts. The Super Bowl turned when Tevin Coleman got hurt, despite these guys tell you. Hey, thanks for clicking. Thanks for watching. And big ups to, of course, Fleazies.com. Check out Fleazies.com. Check out the Sports Podcasting Network.com and our podcast on the SPN. So, until next week, for Orlando Torres and Dan Schalk, this is Brandon Reed. See you later next time. Peace.